What's up, everybody? I guess worth the wait, right? Worth the wait. Coming at you a little bit later than usual because we had an electric, albeit very lopsided, Madden Sim. Hope you enjoyed it, but now it is on to the topics at hand. Reed T. Fowler, Adam Kaufman, the Slate Sports Edition here on a Thursday, and we will cram in as much in the way of sports as we can over the next half hour or so before we're out of here. But Reed T., how are you, buddy?
Good. You should do like a different inflection when you say sports, just to keep it,
Mix it up.
Yeah, you got to mix it up. You can't just go high. Sometimes you got to bring it low if you can't get to that.
Go sports.
Or just very monotone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grow up,
man. I got to mix it up. Got to get a little more creative. You know what it is? Getting lazy at my old age. I think that's what it is.
Boomer.
Let's talk about tonight's Thursday night game, man, because I'm curious. I think curious is a good word for it. I'm not necessarily as invested as I might otherwise be if we were talking about two teams at full strength, but these are, even with the short turnaround, even a Thursday night game, two of the top teams in the National Football League, and two that have combined to not lose a game in their last 13 chances. So Reed, something's got to give. We got the unbeaten 7-0 Arizona Cardinals at home, favored by at last look 6.5. We'll see if that's changed. I don't believe. It's down to 6 on the DK Sportsbook. Yeah. 6 points against the Green Bay Packers, who come in at 6-1, winners of 6 straight, but just woefully undermanned tonight. There is no Davante Adams. There's no Allen Lazard. They're both on the COVID list. There's no MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, not yet activated off IR with that hamstring injury. So Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones, that's the show against Kyler Murray and company. What are your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, if you like the Cardinals, getting this down to an actual pick 'em and in a half of a tease might be something you want to go to, but I'm not touching this line, Koff, because I think there's appeal to look at the Packers getting points, right? Getting 6 on the road. We've seen, and the stats have circulated what Rodgers has done without Davante Adams, right, in 2019. Mm-hmm. He's fantastic. And Rodgers, this is this modus operandi. He loves this. All eyes are on him, right? All these receivers are down. Watch him throw for 350 and 4 touchdowns and 3 going to Big Bob Tunney. So that's his.
He was the guy last year where guys were down.
Yeah.
Old Robert Tonyan,
Big Bob.
Bunches of Funyuns. Yeah, he was the guy.
We didn't find out, though, how to pronounce his last name until week 7.
Very late. Yeah, very late. And I still screw it up all the time. It is Tunyon for the people that don't know. It's not Tonyan. It is Tunyon.
Yeah, it's Tyrod, not Tyrod. So, and he's not in this game, obviously. But
just so you know, though.
Yeah, just so you know. So I'm staying away. I'm staying away from that sense. But in terms of the over-under, I lean towards the over at 50.5. I mentioned why I like the Packer or Green Bay side to go over that. The Cardinals, I do think, even though DeAndre Hopkins is a game time decision, he's going to play. He's going to be, coming with a hamstring injury. Mm-hmm. We've seen this before. This year, actually, we saw him do the same thing with the rib injury, and he wasn't productive. But I do think in this matchup against Eric Stokes, against this Green Bay team that gives up a lot to the side that D-Hop is going to line up on, I think he's in for a huge game. This is an important conference matchup, an important who's going to be the leader in the NFC type of thing at the halfway point if there was an all-star break. But I'm going to stay away from the spread. I like the over. This are, fast-paced when they have to be teams. I'm not too worried about that. But, yeah, staying away from the spread.
If anybody has any questions about this game, you're chasing the million, or you're concerned, obviously, with sports betting, and we'll dive further into some of the odds, the over/under, and money line, and obviously the spread, and we can get into player props and whatever it is that you want to talk about. We can do that. Obviously, get your questions in YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you're finding us. We appreciate it. Reed mentioned obviously the success of Aaron Rodgers without Davante Adams going back to 2019, 6-0, of course. Again, it's not just no Adams, no Lazard, no MVS. I mean, I guess this is where we trust Aaron Rodgers, the would-be Jeopardy host, is a man with all the answers, Reed, because he's got his guy. Randall Cobb is there now. Is this going to be the night? I know he's already had 1 or 2 pretty good games this year, but is this going to be the night as the featured receiver, not necessarily the featured pass catcher? That could be Tunyon. It could be certainly a huge night for Aaron Jones, conceivably. I'm sure a lot of people will be captaining him with what he might be able to do in that passing game. Of course, full point PPR. But is Randall Cobb going to have a night?
I mean, can he? This is like the Roy Kent. This is the last,
It's the last hurrah.
It's like the catcher and Angels in the no, it wasn't Angels in the Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year, yeah.
No, like it's. I think he's
or
viable.
are you thinking you're for love of the game? You think you
For love
Billy
of the game.
Chappell on the mound?
Yeah.
One last little
or Major League, like
or
the list
Major
goes on.
League, sure. Or every baseball movie.
Daniel, Roy Kent, watch Ted Lasso, my man. But yes, it was Daniel. Okay, back to that, to the agenda at hand here. Back to the lecture at hand. I think that
Nice.
yeah. Man, my train of thought's gone. I do think that he's going to be
Randall
viable,
Cobb.
right? He's going to be viable because you mentioned, right? It's the game of attrition. Who else do they have? I do think that he was brought there for a reason. And we get these Randall Cobb games, and I mentioned this to Moose and Emerson yesterday on our show that we did at the same time, but the day previous, is that he is the Deshaun Jackson or the guy in the Sammy Watkins week 1 in the middle, or these random games in like the middle of the season where he has 8 receptions for 120 yards and a touchdown. I can easily see him going for 6 or 7 catches in this game because of what you need.
If you're curious, by the way, 4.5 the over under on the DK Sportsbook for catches and 55.5 yards.
So like over expectation, right? Like 5 for 60 is not out of the realm of possibility. And PPR, that's 11 points. Like you got him for basically nothing off the waiver if you did. And if you were stacking him if you're stashing him like Koff does, where he stashes 18 tight ends and 45 wide receiver fours.
I thought about picking him up too. And then I said, I'm not going to play him.
Right.
So
Chris Hogan was
on
IR. So he had an extra spot for Randall Cobb. But he
retired after a multiple Super Bowl winning career. How dare you?
He's going to coach lacrosse, actually. That's his next.
Turns out he can't really play it anymore. He might have to.
Do you know he played lacrosse?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. But I do think that he has to be, right. I mean, Equimania St. Brown, sure. Mercedes Lewis, sure. But like 15.5 yards could fall into the end zone 1 for 1, 3 yards and a tutty. But it's Tonyan, it's Cobb, it's Jones. And I think AJ Dillon, I think he's viable. A lot of people are out on AJ Dillon. You look at his props, 9.5 is that receiving. Yeah, he's not a receiver, right, out of the backfield.
Yeah.
He's a guy that can get between the tackles, 32.5 rushing yards. I think he smashes that. I really do. I think he's got to be viable. I think when you look at Aaron Jones, 8 snaps last week when these guys are all healthy, he played either he split out wide or in the slot, right? And I could see, and this is again rational coaching, right? Matt LaFleur, if he's a rational coach, he has 2 viable backs, one that can work as an Alvin Kamara, as an Austin Eckler, as a receiver on in the slot or out of the backfield. It wouldn't surprise me if you see both of these guys out there and you see either a ghost motion or a natural motion of Aaron Jones out wide, and you line them up against a linebacker in that mismatch. Some of those are going to go to Aaron Jones, and some of that's going to be handed off to a guy like AJ Dillon. So he doesn't have a bunch of red zone carries, but I do think he is viable. And so that's how you have to create it, right? That's how you have to paint this picture either for DFS or sports betting in this one game. It's just, how do you see this game going? And I think instead of playing these no-name guys, no names to us, right, and really featuring them, you're going to feature the guys that have been playing for the last 7 weeks, in my mind.
So I'm not sure people are necessarily going to, lock in on all these AJ Dillon props anyway tonight, but just to talk about it for a half second, since you brought him up, obviously, if I'm thinking about it, and I'm to some degree, I'm thinking about his game log this season, in which he's, crossed over 30 rushing yards 3 times out of his, 7 games so far. Receiving yards, obviously he's not a big pass catcher. He'll get you 2 to 4 targets a game typically. There's one game he didn't have any, a couple games that he's got 1, but typically 2-3 targets a game. He only had 1 where he went for 49. Most of the others were pretty quiet. I bring all of that up just to say, thinking about game script tonight, which is something you and I talk about all the time, obviously, tell yourself a story. How do you think the game's going to go? AJ Dillon, 32.5 rushing yards. I don't like it. I think they're going to lean heavily on Aaron Jones, as they should. I'm not even sure that Jones is going to get enough run, quite literally, to get to 32.5 when they're spelling Jones. That being said, because it's going to be such a pass heavy game, at least it should be, assuming the Packers are playing from behind, 8.5 the receiving yards, the over under. I like that number. I do like that number. I'd absolutely go for the over on that.
So what you see here too with props that you should go over are the rushing and receiving together, right? The combination. I think this year so far, it's got a 54% hit rate on the over.
45 and a half. I like that.
Yeah, 45 and a half. So like any way you cut it, right? Like he could get 20 receiving yards on a screen pass and then, like 26 rushing yards.
Yeah.
The thing that I do like about his rushing prop is, and I get what you're saying, right? Because GameScript essentially says that they're not going to need him to do that.
Sure.
But Arizona is one of the worst teams against the run so far this season. So is Green Bay, right? So James Conner, I think it's less viable than Chase Edmonds. But on the other side, I would agree with you if we had everybody healthy. Even if we had MVS and Allen Lazard healthy, I would agree with you. But since you have three guys that we know that Aaron Rodgers, and we saw Aaron Rodgers before, right? It's when Devontae Adams was out and these receivers weren't doing anything. He wasn't too happy. And we've seen now defenses, a la the Saints, right, play that 2 coverage, a cover 2 deep. Adams is not going to be in, but how do you stop Rodgers? You do the same thing, right? Like Budda Baker is a guy who's been playing much more deep as opposed to in the box. So you could see these running lanes open up. And I do think that with Arizona's rush defense being one of the worst in the NFL, it's viable. Maybe less, and maybe we're talking more more DFS, right? More showdown, as opposed to betting it in the outright market. Because I do think there are props that I like a lot more than AJ Dillon.
Yeah, of course.
But I think he's going to be factored in. I think people are forgetting about this guy getting around 40% snap share average over the previous 3 weeks over last week, right? And this is the question I proposed on the sweat. What do we believe more? The previous 3 weeks or one potentially outlier week amongst the last month of how he's going to be operating now, especially with three primetime players on offense out in this game.
So you brought up the defense for both these teams. The Cardinals, the 4th ranked total defense in the NFL, 18th against the run, 3rd against the pass, top scoring defense. So we know, obviously that has played a role in them out to this 7-0 start. Don't have JJ Watt. It's not a gigantic loss. Personally, it makes me sad. I enjoy watching him play. Would have been nice to see him out there for a full year, but I don't think that's going to just devastate this defense for Arizona by any stretch. Green Bay, 7th ranked defense, 22 against the run. So like Reed said, just putrid. 6th against the pass, top 7 in terms of the scoring defense. Now, offensively for Arizona, we're talking about one of the better offenses in the NFL. So what are our expectations for Kyler Murray and company, especially if this gets out of hand? Because Murray, he's, as we know, a dynamic quarterback. He's arguably, if he were on the main slate even, he would arguably be the top quarterback in fantasy projection this week. So it's not even like it's a Thursday thing. Kyler Murray obviously is just in a great spot in this matchup. What's interesting, though, in recent games is he hasn't run all that much. He's become obviously more of a passer. He's still very mobile, but he just hasn't relied on the feet nearly as much, which sets up for that option. But on the other side, Chase Edmonds, James Conner, 2 guys that have basically been split backfield, a real time share, but Conner is more of the goal line guy. He's got 6 touchdowns in his 7 games so far this year. What do you make of the run game in general, especially against, like we said, such a bad run defense for Green Bay?
Yeah. I think Chase Edmonds is the guy that you want to try and get in your lineups. He's got 0 touchdowns on the year, and his expectation coming into it, his projection, I think, was 4 or 5 this season. So he's performing under expectation, but he's getting the majority of the snaps. He's getting the majority of the rushing work out of that backfield. Right. And like you mentioned, Kyler Murray actually had this, and I found this very alarming for both sides. And not alarm is the wrong word. I found this interesting, is that Patrick Mahomes has more rush yards than Kyler Murray. And now you take a look at the reasons why, right? Patrick Mahomes is running for his life because the offensive line is brand new, and defenses are kind of figuring out the Chiefs right now. I think the Chiefs will be fine. I don't think that, you have to start doing a fire sale in season long of all your players unless I'm in your league. Give me Patrick Mahomes, give me Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill if you're worried. I will take the lost children of the Kansas City Chiefs. But the reason why they're doing that is because they're down, right? And the routes that these guys have to run for the Kansas City Chiefs are take a while, and the offensive line can't protect Mahomes, and so he's rushing. And that's what you're not seeing from Kyler, is that they're winning these games. So all they're doing is handing the ball off to James Conner, right? He doesn't have to rush. And they're up by 2 scores. So maybe he throws it away. He doesn't have to make all of these plays like he felt like he had to last week. And so when these guys start to, and when the Cardinals maybe start to be more competitive games, I think you're going to see him rush a little bit more. He is a little banged up, right? If you believe that shoulder injury is something, then Chase Edmonds is even more viable, because I do think, again, 50.5, that leans towards a guy like Chase Edmonds. Talking about the sportsbook, though, I think Connor's receiving yards is something like 8, whatever it is. If we have it on the sportsbook, if it's posted for his yards, that's something that, like, I'm, very interested in. If it's not there, like I've seen it.
He's not there right now.
Yeah, because it's like, it's something that is extremely viable, in my opinion. So if you can't get his receptions, or excuse me, his receiving yards, receptions are a little bit less like feasible. He doesn't get any work basically out of the backfield.
3.5 the rushing and receiving yards, though.
Yeah. So again, that's something too, that if you feel, because these guys are home favorites almost by a touchdown, that's going to be a lot of James Conner. If you feel like that's the way it's going to go, I think it's going to be more competitive. So I'm leaning towards Chase Edmonds. I do think he gets in the end zone this week.
Someone in the chat, M. Vance, anybody else thinking Dillon and Jones at running back? If you were, we can get into obviously DFS here. If you were thinking about putting together your showdown lineup for tonight, are you inclined to roster multiple running backs? Not only multiple running backs, but multiple running backs from the same team, obviously.
That's tough, because most of the time these guys don't correlate, right? Unless you're Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, where you have this unbelievable usage out of the backfield and efficiency out of the backfield. Usually these running backs don't positively correlate. Like if you were to captain Aaron Jones and then have AJ Dillon, like you need it to be like, you need the absolute like royal flush of, situations to come out of play
right
here, that you think it's a high, point total. You think Aaron Jones is getting all the receptions, that he's lining up there. He's like an Alvin Kamara where he gets 10 receptions. And then instead of Aaron Jones running it in, they're giving it to AJ Dillon, right? AJ Dillon gets you a couple of touchdowns on the 5-yard line, and he runs it in. But we've seen, though, Green Bay, over expectation, is a team that passes a lot more in the red zone than they run. Now, a lot of that has to do with number 17. He's an unbelievable route runner in the red zone and in the green zone. So maybe with him out, that's why I kind of like AJ Dillon. You look at his stats, he doesn't have a lot of red zone carries at all, but because right in the first 7 weeks, we've just seen Aaron Jones, we've seen Robert Tonyan's got a ton of targets in the red zone, and we've seen Devontae Adams. I'd lean towards playing someone like Aaron Jones by himself as opposed to both of those guys. I'm going to captain Kyler Murray just because I think that with his ability of throwing 7 touchdowns in the last 2 games, and the Packers
20 total touchdowns on the year for
unbelievable.
Him, second in the NFL.
Unbelievable. Look at that, 4 and 3, right? I get Houston, but Cleveland, 4 touchdowns in Cleveland. This guy's amazing. He's not, again, you see his rushing attempts, 6, 7, 7, 6, not bad, but the yardage isn't there. I just think this guy is, he's sort of like a cheat code, and the usage that he's getting, especially in the red zone. AJ Green is getting a ton of work in the red zone. I think D-Hop is going to be amazing again tonight. Zach Ertz, I haven't talked about Zach Ertz. I think he's going to be solid as well. So I like.
I was going to ask you about him. Let's go to Zach Ertz, because Arizona debut. A lot of people wondered, okay, what is he going to do? Is he going to be, more of a decoy, more of a blocker, whatever? Obviously, as we saw, first game, he has the 46-yard touchdown. He had multiple other catches. It was a good overall game for a guy. I'll pull up his game log here, but just getting comfortable with Kyler Murray in that first game looked good. He had 16 fantasy points. That was his high on the year. Went 3 for 5, the 66 yards, a touchdown, even ran the ball for 4 yards. Why the heck not? Do you like him tonight?
Yeah. He only played on 49% of the snaps too. So he did all of this in about half of the snaps. Right. And it's like Ertz we loved both Goddard and Ertz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we loved both of them, but they were just cannibalizing each other's production. And what you see with what they do now, they ran a lot of, 3 wide receiver sets. Now, when you have Zach Ertz, You don't have to do that. If I'm just looking at his route log, 16 routes, right? 16 routes, and he was targeted on 5 of those. So he's got a 33% target per route run. He had 1 red zone target. He had 31 air yards. And look, Kyler can create, right? Kyler can create space. He can create, plays that don't amount to anything. And what do you love about guys like Zach Ertz? He's extremely athletic, right? He's still got a motor. So I really like him this week.
So you mentioned captain and Kyler Murray. Totally agreed. That's the move in terms of, if you're playing a cash game or a much smaller contest, of course you're going to captain Kyler Murray. I don't really know why you wouldn't. And, he's projected for somewhere in the neighborhood of right around 35 points tonight in that captain spot, obviously north of 20 in just a regular flex position. He's very expensive. He's 18 grand. That's the bulk of your salary if you put him in that slot. But if you are trying to win a GPP, while I'm sure most people like the ownership projection is still going to be very high, like you might still be captain in, 30% of lineups or something like that, some big number, whatever it is. But if you are looking to move away, if you are looking for a pivot, not to mention something of a salary saver, is it Aaron Jones? Is it Aaron Rodgers? Are you going off the board with somebody random? What's your move?
So I'm in the captain spot.
Yeah.
I mean, I again, Kyler is the play. But I mentioned Chase Edmonds at 10-5. I do think this is going to be a shootout, right? I'd say, in the mid 50s. I think we're going to get there. The only problem is the touchdowns aren't necessarily there. So you need to think that the touchdowns are going to be there for a guy like Chase Edmonds. And these are one of the things too, that if you have all the yards, the targets, the usage, production, but no touchdown, like at some point, this is going to, it's just going to absolutely explode, right? The Cardinals are 7-0 for a reason. They're a good team. They're a good team. Their secondary is solid for Arizona, or excuse me, for Green Bay, but they got a lot of injuries, right? Especially Jair Alexander. Eric Stokes is fine. But if you're taking a look at Aaron Jones, right, in terms of usage, yes, it's a lot better, but does it give you a lot of salary, or does it give you leverage? No, because everyone thinks Aaron Jones is going to be the focal point of this offense. And while that might be the case, he might get you 20 points, 25 points in the captain spot. Welcome to Chalkville, because he's going to be extremely chalky. The value,
not nearly enough. Like, I don't want to captain Aaron Jones if he's only getting me 25 points in that spot. Right. I want 25 in the flex from Aaron Jones.
Well, that's what I mean, though. Like 25 without the captain spot. If you get that extra point and a half, what is that? 37, right? That's solid for Aaron Jones. Right. If you're getting that extra, but again, right? I think the value is less on the Arizona side. It's with the Green Bay. It's with the Packers, right? Randall Cobb is there. Robert Tunyon is cheap this week. Right, like you have these guys at these lower prices. Tunyon 6,900 in the captain spot, and we saw him have a huge game on prime time. What was it? 3 touchdowns. I remember that game because he was sitting on my bench.
Coming up party. Yep.
Yeah, so he's definitely someone that can give you some sort of leverage. And I mean, we haven't talked about Aaron Rodgers. Like Aaron Rodgers could be that guy too. Like if everyone's going to Kyler. He's someone not necessarily, not from a price standpoint. He's not value for price, but he potentially could be value, right, from a roster percentage standpoint.
So where I like Aaron Rodgers tonight, and somebody had just asked in the chat, first time playing Fortnite, will Jones be captain more than Kyler? I'm going to say no. That's my belief.
I don't think so.
But where I really do like Aaron Rodgers tonight, again, it's not a move I would make in a cash game. I think you got to go Kyler there. But in a larger GPP, you're chasing the million, whatever, where what feels good, not safe, but what feels good about Aaron Rodgers, and this is true of Kyler Murray, again, as a high floor guy. But with Rodgers, one, he's not going to be owned nearly as much as Murray, at least in the captain spot. And 2, without Adams, without Lazard, without MVS, he's got to throw the ball, especially if they're down by a bunch or down by multiple touchdowns. He's got to throw the ball. And the question becomes, where the heck's he throwing? Is he throwing a Tunyon? Is he throwing a Cobb? Is he, throwing a Equanimous St. Brown, who might be the chalky value at $600 tonight in the flex? Where is he going to throw? And you want to get your points that way. It's not, the same, obviously, in the sense of captaining a receiver or a pass catcher and getting you the PPR points, but you want to get the touchdowns. You want Reed the exposure to the touchdowns. And obviously, if you have Aaron Rodgers, short of rushing scores by Jones and Dillon, they're all coming from Rodgers. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of logic in playing him tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I have him around like 10% in the captain for his roster percentage. For that other question, I have Kyler around 25% in the roster spot projection, obviously. And then I have Jones at around 15 or like 14.
Jones 15 feels right.
Yeah. So like Aaron, like what do I like 10? 8 to 10 around there. Yeah. Because right, the narrative is that he doesn't have his pass catchers.
Yeah.
So like, again, he's that's where he's trying to find leverage, right? James Conner, like I'm just gonna throw out names here. James Conner's got a ton of touchdowns, got a ton of usage. If you feel like this game is going to be how it's, played out in terms of spread at home, almost a touchdown favorite, and any other spot, Koff, if we had a touchdown favorite at home for an undefeated team, and if it wasn't against Aaron Rodgers, we'd be like, James Conner is in a smash opportunity to do extremely well, right? The same way we thought about him last week, even though there was 1,000 teams on bye, James Conner was a top 12 and RB1 because of just the usage and the narrative. Again, it's the Packers, though. I think the Packers have, been playing well. Their defense isn't that good. So if you wanted to play someone on leverage, we talked about Chase Edmonds. I don't mind James Conner. I'm not going to do it. But the touchdowns for the guy is there, man. He's got all these touchdowns. Like look at that. Yeah. Only 1 week in the last 5 weeks, he hasn't scored a touchdown. 12.4, 8.1, 10. He doesn't have that high upside, but look at his usage. My goodness.
And Randall Cobb, if you want to go off the board, like where do you have him projected? Probably 5-7%, something like that in the captain spot. If you believe this is the coming out party, at least for this season,
probably around 3 or 4, to be honest.
That low?
I don't think people are gonna, because it's still Randall Cobb, right? It's like it's like Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, like it's still old man Randall Cobb. Either Rondell Moore is much more appealing to a lot of people, right? He's someone that a lot of people love to play. That's are saying he's the best rookie still, not Kadarius Toney, not Jamar Chase, right? So Rondell Moore is that guy. No one's saying that, but look, if you captain Randall Cobb, boy, you can fit in everything and everybody at like high price tags. Everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you put Randall Cobb into that captain spot. Where is he? $5,400. Yeah, you've got almost $9,000 available on average.
Yeah. So look, I mean, I lean towards not being that, that outrageous, but I would not knock someone again because you're down 3 primary pass catchers. That's 32% target share. That's the deep threat, right? That's the number 2 receiver. That's everybody. Now you only got your middle of the field guys in TONYAN and Cobb. So I could definitely see that, but I'm going to go elsewhere in my captain spot.
I know he's a potential slate breaker, but he's not fully healthy. DeAndre Hopkins, that's who I'm talking about. Yeah. He's banged up, obviously. His ownership, I mean, he's going to be chalky, obviously. I think he's projected 35 to 40% ownership in that flex spot, maybe somewhere in that window. But I guess what I'm wondering is he a guy that you're going to fade tonight on account of that injury?
No. This is all eyes are on this game, right? Kyler Murray, undefeated, DeAndre Hopkins coming in banged up. He's done this a lot. He did this a lot in Houston. Where he wouldn't practice, and he doesn't need to practice. It's DeAndre Hopkins, damn it. But he's got Eric Stokes. I mentioned his name earlier. Eric Stokes is a rookie. I think he's going to be a fine player. I think he's going to be solid. But since Jair went down, he's shadowed. And he shadowed guys like Terry McLaurin who went off. He's shadowed guys like Jamar Chase who's gone off. Right? It's it's going to be a little bit tough for our main man Eric Stokes, and their red zone defense for Green Bay is middle of the pack. It's like 16. And I think DeAndre Hopkins, who gets targeted a lot in the red zone, I think he gets you a couple touchdowns. I really like him this week. I think his prop I think his receiving yards prop is like 65 and change. Somewhere around there. I think it's his lowest of the entire season. Right. So that's where you want to exploit it. Like 63.5.
Yep.
Yeah. That's his lowest. And I know he hasn't eclipsed, I don't think 55 Koff in the last couple of games to go to his game log, but still Like he's
355. Yep.
Yeah, he's amazing. Because look at that, 87 to 67. Like he's solid, and he's a guy that's going to show up. I'm definitely stacking DeAndre and Kyler and trying to figure it out elsewhere.
Well, so if you want to do that, you're going to need to get cheap, seemingly cheap in one spot, probably not two. You can go more mid tier with a guy, but if you're looking for that punt play, that guy who's sub 1K, it's going to be on the Green Bay side. Obviously, I mentioned Equinemius St. Brown. There's Malik Taylor. He's $200. You've got the other Rodgers as well.
Amari.
Not just Aaron. You got Amari. Yeah. AJ Dillon, who's not sub 1K, but he's 1,400, who you talked about before. Mercedes Lewis is a grand. I mean, which of these Green Bay guys in particular do you like best when it comes to value?
Probably Equimanius, just because we know, right? We've seen him before. Amari Rodgers is still someone who's brand new to this league. MVS is out though. Like Amari Rodgers is the guy that kind of fills that MVS role, right? He's a field stretcher. But look, Equimanius, we know he's a big receiver. Rodgers likes these guys that can, they can fill a spot, that have a high catch radius, a large catch radius. And that's what Equimanius St. Brown is. He hasn't needed to play because we've had a cavalcade of guys like Lazard, MVS when he was there. And all these Green Bay Packers doing well, right? Devontae Adams. So we didn't need Brown, and he's been injured. So I like him. I like him. If I'm having to save, I'm going to Brown. I think Mercedes Lewis is like a first touchdown type guy at plus 4,000. First touchdown is what I want to go to with Mercedes, less on the DFS side, more on the first touchdown, because boy, like imagine, right? Wouldn't you just see, like, would you be surprised if Mercedes Lewis scores the first touchdown? No.
Yes, I would.
No, it's plus 4,000. We've seen Donald Parham score the first touchdown in games, and he's plus 4,000. Come on now, it's Mercedes.
Yeah, plus 4.
Why not? A little sprinkle.
Or do the plus 750 for an anytime touchdown.
Yeah, give me the first.
Live a little, would you? All right, let's mix in a couple other things before we get out of here. I don't see if anybody has any other questions, though. We're happy to take them on football in the final couple minutes that we have. But basketball, I think it's a light slate tonight. I think it's just 6 games. And for folks wondering who the best plays are, I would point you in the direction of, let's see, Luka Doncic, obviously, Steph Curry, obviously, supreme value tonight in Montrezl Harrell, who comes in at $5,300. That's it. Potential 9x value on the return right there. Probably not a Joel Embiid night. Bradley Beal, not another guy that I'd be zeroed in on. Julius Randle, either, as good as he's been. Trae Young, kind of same story. In fact, he might even be questionable to play tonight as things stand right now. But Luka, Steph, certainly your 2 studs that stand out the most. You want to dip down to some other real value. I mean, you can get Eric Paschall real close to the minimum. I know people have trouble trusting him when it comes to DFS, and I get it. I've been burned by him before, but he's in a good spot tonight for Utah. You could look at Frank Jackson. He's $3,700. Thad Young, $3,900. Just looking at sub 4K guys. Raul Neto, you could look at him. Dwight Powell. So there are a bunch. There are others as well, but just some names I want to throw out at you before we run out of time. And by all means, get those lineups in. Obviously, with let's see, how about a little golf? What's going on at the Butterfield Bermuda Championship, where I am told there is Bermuda grass?
Yes, play has been suspended due to darkness in Bermuda. I feel like any island doesn't really get dark, but it has to, right? Windy conditions.
It has to at some point, right?
Very windy conditions in the morning. So the scores weren't great in the morning, but we see Brandon Haggy at 6 under. Patrick Reed was at 4 under going to 18. He bogeyed it. So now he's at plus 800 on the DK Sportsbook, I think, to win. I mean, Patrick Reed is by far, when you talk about just sheer talent, he's the best in this field, along with Matthew Fitzpatrick. But we're seeing a lot of that, right? We're seeing a lot of wind. We're seeing the scores are at 6 under. So it looks like the draw for the PM. Let's see how the AM is next week, or excuse me, tomorrow. We'll see if that factors in, but I think it's still early. What we've seen from this tournament, COBB, is that guys like Brian Gay, Brendan Todd, I believe they weren't leaders after day one. You know, there were guys that kind of came from behind, like Brian Gay in 2020, he was 7 back after round 1, 4 back after round 2. And then in round 3, he was 2 back. So guys can still make it. And so you always talk about, you know, what are some guys that we want to bet on? Brendan Todd was 1 back or 6 back, excuse me, after round 1. Then he was, you know, tied for the lead after round 2. I do think there are guys that you can still go after because this tournament is, you know, usually a birdie fest. So, you know, if the wind dies down a little bit, you're going to see some guys when the lines pop up, right, for outright after this, right, after they finish round 1. You want to check on some of these guys that are 4 or 5 back, you know, that still are viable. Maybe not necessarily like the Patrick Reeds of the world because he's at plus 800, but if you want to, completely fine. Last time I saw his line come out, but you know, guys that I still think that can hit the ball well, can drive in the fairway, putt on these Bermuda greens, go after those guys because, you know, those are the ones that are going to give you better odds. And we've already seen now, you know, golf being played. Patrick Rodgers is there at 3 under. Dylan Fratelli is at 3 under. Right. So there's still players right now that I really like. Bo Hogg was leading this tournament for the morning time, and he's at 1 under. Kramer Hickok is at 1 under. So the guys still that I like that are 4 or 5 back that I'm not too worried about.
Thought you said Boss Hog for a second. Thought we were getting a Dukes of Hazzard throwback.
No, that's another show.
Would have been in on that, man. All right, we're gonna get going, but how about just for giggles? Because again, there are no Madden Sims tonight, folks. Of course, it's all about Thursday night football coming your way in shade over 2 hours at this point. Green Bay looking for its 7th straight win. It's going to be tough. Arizona going for its 8th in a row. That game is out west in obviously Arizona. So how about just for giggles, a bold prediction tonight on this game?
Let's see. Just for giggles, Randall Cobb. No. Bold prediction. I was going to say DeAndre Hopkins 2 touchdowns, but that's not really bold because
it's not that bold.
DeAndre Hopkins is awesome. I say the Packers win and AJ Dillon goes for over. I think AJ Dillon scores at least once, and I'll say Tunyan scores twice.
Well, as someone with AJ Dillon on my fantasy bench and where he will remain tonight,
same.
That will be
that's fine. Hey, that's fine.
That will be disheartening.
You know, it's fine. I say Dillon scores a touchdown. I think Tunyan scores 2.
All right, I'm going to say Arizona wins, which is not bold, but you will get 2 touchdowns out of Randall Cobb. 2. Aaron Rodgers is going to be feeding the guy that kept him in Green Bay. That was the thing that put him over the top to stick around. He's going to reward him tonight. Now's your night, Randall. So
Randall, come on. I'd love to see that.
Everybody enjoy it. We'll be tweeting about it, having ourselves a time. Go back, review, and relive this show in the time that you have again before that game starts tonight, or even before NBA lock in about an hour as well. Thanks all for hanging out. Thanks to Eamon, our producer, Daniel, our technical director, and Reed. Quite literally couldn't do it without you, my friend. I'll be back on the slate tomorrow with, I think, Bukes and Lamarca probably talking baseball. See how much Red Sox talk I can wedge into that just to aggravate Bukes. All right, Reed. Thanks, buddy.
All right, bud.
See you guys.